the names ourselves. It's actually not perhaps what Mr. Owino is saying. Okay. But when we are carrying out investigations, we do our investigations undercover until we are satisfied that the matter, because our investigations are prosecution geared, conviction geared. So when we are at initial stages of those investigations, we don't go throwing allowed names. So
then do you feel the interdiction came too soon? Because is that what you're saying?
No. The interdiction, in fact, if the interdiction had not happened, we would already be agitating and taking an issue over that.
But you don't want to release the names because you feel it's not sufficient. There's no sufficient
evidence. At the appropriate time and when we are sure that our investigations are at a level whereby they cannot be prejudiced, and where now we have hard facts, we shall be able to release those names.
And they're going to be charged, because if they're going to be charged, their names have to be released. Right?
It's okay.
When a charge sheet goes to court, that's a different matter, because a court is a public filer, and then the charge sheet, obviously, it's a public file, and anybody can go and decipher the information from the charge sheet. Okay. But at this point in time, we will not want to do...
I think I'd not finished.
I'm the victim. Are you going to charge them? Let's start from there.
No, I cannot say that. It is their recommendation and internal affairs that will be able to tell us who ought to be charged for what, in case they will be.
Perhaps you can give me 1 minute to make a clarification, because Mr. Owino said that the IAU, the Internal Affairs Unit, because I remarked that we may not wait until the Internal Affairs Unit
You said you cannot allow.
Yes, indeed.
Let him explain.
We work closely with the Internal Affairs Unit. There are matters we specifically refer to the Internal Affairs Unit, because they are mandated to deal with those matters on professional, misconduct and those other things. But this one, we have discovered it's a criminal activity, and we will take over those investigations that are already ongoing. We don't want to carry out parallel investigations, so we will take over the investigations that Internal Affairs Unit are doing, and in collaboration with them, bring evidence together and forward the file to the office of the
Samson, let me rope you in. You're a bit too quiet. Samson, 2 questions for you. Charles Owino has given us a fantastic example of how sometimes it is us, a society, who provoke some of these officers on the ground. For example, in a riot, you will find individuals who will purposely, intentionally provoke officers. At the end of the day, do those same officers, in such a scenario where it's a riot or a demonstration, as an officer who is on the ground, you spit at me or you throw a stone at me, do I also, because at the end of the day, I'm also a human being, have a right? Can I come to KNHCR and say that during this riot, Kenyan A, B, C, D, provoked me by doing X, Y, Z. They abused my own rights. Is that possible? Can officers do the same thing?
Allow me to speak to 2 things before I get to that. Number 1 is about IPOA and AU, what my colleague Owino is speaking to, and Honorable Iganjo. I think the law envisages complementarity between the 2 institutions. IPOA works as an external oversight agency, and IAU works as internal unit that deals with issues of professionalism. So what we would want to see is a case where IAU and IPOA are complementing on the work that they do. I think that is important. Number 2 is the issue of recruitment that has been discussed around the table. I think the issue of recruitment to the police, when we can all remember very well, there was a time when police recruitment was, IPOA went to court and the process was stopped. It was nullified. What the National Police Service Commission did at that time was to go ahead and develop very good regulations that will guide the process. And the regulation envisages a place where, a point where police will be a professional organization, where people would apply at the beginning. The vacancies would arise, it will be advertised in the newspapers, people would apply, there will be a selection process. It will be taken out to the members of the public so that they can submit any information that they have on these people, and all that process. I think one of the things we have seen consistently is that ever since the regulations were gazetted, they have never been used, and therefore that is a problem. So therefore, dealing with recruitment in the manner which was envisaged in the regulation has not happened as we speak now. So that is a big problem that I think we need to deal with. So let me get back to your question. I think we need to look at the role of the police during public order management at different contexts. Number 1 is that the police should be seen as facilitators during public order management. So when people want to go for demonstrations, they are expected to go and get notification. And at that process, police will be expected to facilitate. Number 2, police will be expected to provide proper communication in terms of what is expected from them, how it can be done, who they should report to whenever there are violations that occur. Number 3, police should be able to differentiate between individuals that are in a group. And I'm speaking about issues of blanket condemnation. That police should not say that the whole group turned violent. I mean, when demonstrations are taking place, police should be able to say that this is the behavior of Zizi, this is the behavior of Treasurer, and therefore, if there's a person within the group that is considered to be a risk, then the police should be able to identify and deal with that person as the law requires, as opposed to blanket condemnation. Number 4, the police are expected to carry out crowd management. When you speak about people that are throwing stones to motorists when they are passing, it is expected that the police would help deal with such people as the law requires, so that there's proper management, there's proper flow of traffic and all that. Police are also expected to ensure there's maintenance of law and order as all this is happening. But when there's a case where a member of the public goes against the law, I mean, the police are mandated to act as is required by law. Okay. It should be proportional, it should be necessity. They can as well come to report the various institution. It could be the commission, it could be IPOA, and the necessary action is taken.
Okay. We have to take a quick break now. When you come back, I'll hear Renee's thoughts on these issues that are coming up on recruitment and training and general criteria of selection and use of force. And also we'll see your feedback. Keep them coming. 22422 at Trevor Mbija at Citizen TV Kenya at Zinzi_K. Use the hashtag Daybreak. We're back in just a bit. All right, thank you for staying with Daybreak. Let's see what you're saying on social media at Citizen TV Kenya, Trevor Mbija at Zinzi_K. Hashtag Daybreak. Let's bring them up and see what you're saying right now. Samuel Rioba from Kiambu, that's in Juja where the action was. Good morning. I think the police today is better than the police yesterday. I think the rot can be contained if there are more engagements like this. Giving information and following up is also important. Above all, the police function is promoting and protection of human rights. He continues to say, at the end of it all, the police come from our society, which is already rotten, but this should not be an excuse. We should isolate the rotten cases and deal with them selectively and give reports so that the public is confident once again. All
right, this is on SMS 22422's SMS line. Dr. Owiti, all the way from Lodwar, good morning. You're saying, if they belt security officers with stones and destroy property, do they expect to be rewarded with lollipops and ice cream?
Okay. Mariam Famau from Nairobi, right in Pumwani, says, good morning. At times we need to appreciate our state agents. They are human beings too.
Okay, you don't say who you are, but this is what you say. Good morning, Daybreak. Good morning to you too. Although a few rotten individuals taint the police force, we do appreciate what the men and women in uniforms do. My question is, who speaks on behalf of the men that put their lives online? My opinion that it's not all a bad culture in our country all around. And hence why I asked Samson the question of what if now a police officer's rights get abused during a riot? Because at the end of the day, they are human beings.
There's still another one here. You don't leave your name or where you're texting from, but you say two wrongs can't make a right. Yes, the excess force the officers used is condemned. Nevertheless, the actions of the university students were provocative. I wish they staged peaceful demonstrations, but throwing stones at the police officers with an intention of injuring is totally discouraged. You continue to say citizens should avoid that. What the officers ought to have done is to pursue them, make arrests, record statements, and let them be charged in a court of law.
All right. You still don't say who you are, but you say we need to have an honest conversation. We should only condemn the police if we address the issue of morality. What happens to people whose cars and properties were damaged? True. If people want to demonstrate, they should be civilized and adhere to the law. Anything out of that is criminality.
All right, let's see what else you're saying. Joram from Meru says, police brutality should be a thing of the past. Our officers aren't a force, but service. The government should train our police to use psychology, hence negotiate to avert or stop rioting in a peaceful way. Police should treat citizens with dignity. Let's begin to see police as friends, not enemies. Otherwise, the negative perspective to prevent anarchy.
Okay, let's take a look at your tweets at Citizen TV Kenya. That's us on Twitter at Trevor Mbija at Zinzi_K. Prince, you're saying when protesters greatly outnumber police and they use rocks, it stops being a peaceful protest. I don't, however, support that trampling incident. This human rights should also come out to defend police rights.
That defense is coming up again. Idris Donnell It says every day police officers go around in the evening collecting bribes from bars all over. Right now, traffic police officers are on the roads collecting bribes from matatus, and it happens daily. Yet, you claim it's a few rotten officers. The whole police service is sick.
Okay. Still on Twitter, Sam, you're saying the major problem with the police reform or erasing police brutality is their training manual. There is no human rights training, I think, in that unit. I think
that's not necessarily true. I think there is. It's just
a human rights training. Okay.
Omondi Patrick says it is a big insult to our intellect when the police spokesperson attempts to justify police brutality on the basis of provocation. It is absurd in light of some of the material online where state agents were shooting right into hostels. Where is the proportionality?
Okay, a lot of your feedback, Martin, you're saying they may be trained, but is their curriculum in line with the changing trends? Their first priority is to create order. In most cases, they add fuel to the fire. There is need to revise the curriculum in line with the changing trends. Priority is to de-escalate the situation.
All right. Another one here coming through. Okay. Keep your views coming on 22422. Kindly tell us your name and where you're texting from. And on online, you can get us at Citizen TV Kenya, Trevor Mbija, _K. Use the hashtag Daybreak. Renee, you've had a lot of the reactions. Do you agree with what you've seen from the people there?
Let me just say, and I think I shall preface each one of my interventions with this, that there are good police officers. There are very many great police officers that we have seen in years past, I think up till 2016, the Commissioner can correct me if I'm wrong, where we have actually had publicly voted outstanding police officer awards by IPOA for officers who have gone over and above the call of duty. And I think that they should be celebrated continuously.
That is celebrating them, Renee.
Here's the thing, that the celebration of those who go up above and beyond the call of duty does not allow on the other side some kind of passageway for those who do not meet the minimum standards required for police service. And we must reiterate that over and over. Let's look at this riot for which we are having this conversation. What was this riot about? This riot was about insecurity. We have been running as Amnesty International Kenya a campaign saying to students, ongeza volume, comrade hayuko sawa. We recognize that there is insecurity in universities. Why have not the universities heard the students to the point where the students had to go into a protest? So if we're talking about collective responsibility, let's look at every institution that has played a role in bringing us to this point here. Because I think the issue of police brutality is one, and the issue of how police are managing riots and are managing protests is one which I think is on the table.
So based on what you've said, then should there be collective responsibility or individual responsibility?
We do need to address two things. Number one is if a specific human being abrogates the right of another specific human being, that needs to be redressed. But where that is systemic, then we have to go beyond looking at Officer Owino and putting him under pressure to come and explain something to us, and go behind and look at what was raised at this table, which is how are we recruiting? What is the standard for which we are using to put these professionals in a place where they have powers beyond you and I? Because remember, a police officer can, if he or she feels that there is justification to do so, deprive you of life instantaneously, deprive you of your liberty, restrain you, and put you away. And that is a humongous amount of power for which we cannot allow an argument that there was an emotional reaction. The other thing that we must underscore is that as CSOs, as civil society organizations, and particularly as Amnesty International Kenya, we have come out in protest in cases where we have seen citizens who have abused or have attacked police officers. The latest case, if you look on our website, and also if you follow us on any of our social media at Amnesty International Kenya, you will have seen our statements on the two police officers who were attacked most recently. So no, we're not just one-sided. We recognize that every single person has a human right, whether you are in uniform or you're not. But we need to discuss what needs to be done for us to begin to make these changes. Number one, my colleague has said it earlier, we must deal with the issue of the standard of recruitment the level, the curriculum, as I think someone has raised on social media, the curriculum of training and the goal and purpose of the police service. If it is to serve, to protect, to contain, to remove criminal elements for which there will always be in any society, then that is what they must be geared towards, and that is what civilians should expect from them and support them in. We cannot expect a police force or a police service that will issue statements that are intended to mislead the public until the public itself brings evidence to the contrary to be trusted. It's a two-way process.
So for clarification purposes, Renee, you are confirming to us as Amnesty Kenya, you have had cases where, as Amnesty, you are now defending the police officer.
And in fact, we are condemning actions by civilians against police officers. Our record is clear. In fact, I invite you right now to go and check any of our social media pages.
Okay.
Weganji, you want to jump in before we bring in?
Yes, because we do the same. Let it not appear like we condemn the police en masse and do nothing about their welfare. Actually, one of the primary mandates of IPOA is to professionalize the police service. So we do not just condemn. 30% of the complaints that we get are themselves from the police officers.
So what are you recommending to professionalize the police service?
First of all, at the point of induction, I think it's very important to look at the curriculum and the syllabus of the officers. And we have already given that proposal to the National Police Service, that before the officers are inducted, we be allowed to jump in, to come with interventions, and also come and present our mandate and emphasize on what needs to be done and the human rights element in policing. So that way, when the officers come now to serve the public, they will be properly inducted, because we feel at the point of induction there's a problem there. And then on the chain of command, we want also the officers to have a leeway where they can raise their complaints through us, and then we handle those complaints, because I will tell you for a fact, the junior officers really suffer under the senior police officer. And that is one of the reasons, perhaps, when they go out, they are brutal and they act in the manner in which they do.
Samson, speaking of how we treat our officers, how much of what we, and when I mean we, I mean perhaps the government and at large society, how much of what we, the role that we play in terms of how our the attitude or the behavior that our police have, a negative attitude or negative behavior, how much of the government's contribution is that in there? When I ask this, I'm talking about perhaps in how we treat our police officers, their salaries, how we maintain them, etc., the frustrations that they have to come with to work. This is a very sensitive career. In some societies, it's held quite high, right? So how we as a society treat our police officers, how the government treats our police officers, how much of that is a role into how the negative attitude or behavior that they then reflect back onto us?
I think to answer that, we might need to step back slightly a little and look at this from 2010, when we really began the journey of what we are calling the current police reforms. And police reforms came as a package. And therefore, we look at the issue of legislation, we look at issues of oversight, we look at issues of tooling, we look at issues of resourcing, we look at all that. But I think what we have seen is that there are aspects that have moved, but there are other aspects that have not moved. We've seen a lot of new tools. We've seen vehicles all over. We've seen new uniforms. We've seen everything. But I think if you look at the extent to which the police officers, their welfare has been taken, I think that has remained a challenge. There has been an attempt to increase their salaries. Fine. It's still not matching to that of other professionals. But I think it's really not an argument that is worth advancing. The fact that I'm paid poorly does not give me a license to go and violate human rights.
But it has a mental aspect.
Well, it has a mental, but there are other Kenyans who are really also paid poorly and work under really poor conditions. The good working conditions are important, but I think the issue of training and the issue of sticking to what is required for me in terms of maintenance of law and order is important. So let us not use the opportunity of saying police are poorly paid, police have poor working conditions, and therefore for them that is an opportunity to violate human rights. Let's uplift their living standards, but let them do their main role of maintaining law and order.
We know, Michelle here says that ask Owino whether his officers are briefed and debriefed to and from missions such as controlling students' unrest. Is there a debriefing of the officers that there's an unrest?
That is a standard procedure.
So then,
even when you are going for beat duty, you must be briefed.
You must be debriefed.
So you must be briefed. And
should
when
the
you
commanding
come
officer
back,
then take also responsibility, because he said that don't
you ask
do
me
this
a question,
and they did it.
you don't want me to answer.
That's what it's a follow-up to the question that Michelle asked.
You are talking and I'm talking. I'm saying for every case, for every duty that the officers go out of their station, they must be briefed. And when they come back, they are debriefed and they must give reports. But the first thing I want to say, constitutionally, the institution with the mandate, the human rights defender #1 is police. You may like it, you may not like it, but the institution which is human rights defender is the police. Because, you are smiling, look at me. If you have a problem, even somebody steals your bag now, where do you report?
To a police officer.
It's a constitutional mandate.
In certain societies.
Excuse
in Kenya?
Me. No, it is a constitutional mandate. And that is why I say the human rights defender #1 is police. But at the same time, the policemen are also accused of violating human rights. And when they're accused of violating human rights, let us not forget the good work that they do every day. In fact, I've seen lately people don't even understand that the Criminal Investigations Department is a unit under the Inspector General, simply because he puts on uniform. All the good work that CID do, much of the glory not only goes to the DCI, but also goes to the head of police, who is the Inspector General. So, you know, sometimes when we talk about police, talk about the good things. You've seen lately the DCI is doing a very good job and making arrests and charging people. And people are happy with that, especially on economic crimes. And even on cases of murder, he's done extremely well as an institution.
Mr. Owino, if this video did not go viral, if someone didn't take a video of this, if Kenyans on social media didn't complain, would action have been taken?
I want to tell you that today, if you go to Internal Affairs Unit or you go to Complaints Department in police, there are officers we are demoting, we are sacking. Are you getting me?
Okay.
We are reprimanding on various complaints that come every day. This is just one complaint. But there are many other small complaints that come that you don't see, that you don't hear. In fact, we are one of the very few institutions that in 1 year, we unfortunately dismiss very many officers based on discipline, and they can confirm that to you. But you remember I also said that it is important to highlight wrong things. You've seen, even ordinarily, economic crimes occur, but nobody gets to know until a whistleblower comes up and says, or people disagree on dividing a loot, then we get the information, then we act on it. So there are many things, but this one, if it didn't come out, but a complaint went to IPOA, for example. Remember, IPOA had sent people in advance because they knew there's going to be a demonstration, there's going to be a riot, and they need to do what? They need to monitor, which is part of their duty. With that intelligence, even without this thing coming out, I am sure they would have acted. And that is why we are complimenting. Even us, we want to be a professional service. We want to be respected. I want my policemen, the junior policemen we are employing and the policewomen, to get good husbands and wives. They can only do that if police has a good name. Why should you be proud to be a medical doctor if today his daughter brings forth, I hope your daughter is big enough, or almost. If your daughter brings forth a young man and says a policeman, another one brings a medical doctor, I am sure in you, naturally as a human being, you may dismiss the policeman. Say, hey, police, because you know he's poorly paid, your daughter is going to suffer because the husband is poorly paid. Number two, they have a bad image. Hey, my daughter is married to a policeman, you know. We want the police to be a professional, just a minute, we want the police to be a professional service that is respected.
Okay. How do we do that?
It's a collective responsibility, as I have said. All of us, we must support our police in all manner of ways. We must support them in many. But you said something about recruitment, and somebody talked about D+. We have to recruit people with D+. We have also to recruit people with A. The police requires forensic experts, people who have done biochemistry and chemistry. The police require pilots. The police require pathologists who are doctors. The police require engineers, because we have investigative cases that are at territorial dimensions, that have quantities when we are investigating land fraud and the rest. So police is one institution that require all professionals, including lawyers, communicators, including political scientists, people who can analyze a political situation and say, we are going to expect this in the coming general elections, and therefore we need to be prepared in this manner. So this is a profession that ought not to be handled with contempt.
Okay.
Another thing, and we must also recruit D+, because we also have other duties that you may not ask somebody with biochemistry to come and guard citizen center if there is need, or guard or carrier. It will not work.
Okay.
Yeah. So we require all sorts of persons. But lastly, for Madam, I have one request. We keep on talking about 78 deaths by police. We must also accept that there are circumstances when police are justified to use firearms. And people must know. You cannot come from your home in Alego or here in Kiambu or in Makueni with a gun, with an AK-47. You are a civilian, you are not registered, and you've come to town to steal. Hiyo hapana, hiyo haitakubaliwa. And you know, when it comes to use of firearms, when the first person to open fire survives.
Right.
So you must tell Kenyans, hakuna kubeba bunduki unatoka naye kwenu, that you are coming to town to steal, or you are coming to rob Madam here. No.
Okay.
If you find that death recorded, what you ought to do is to ensure that every death we take every death seriously, even if we are justified. We must open inquiries into the cause of that death.
Okay.
So you must be considerate. Number two, we would want you, when you are recording deaths by police, also to record deaths by civilians. When you go to what we call Vitongoji Duni, you go to Kibera, you go to Mathare, and so on. We have our mothers and sisters raped in the morning, going to the market, at the bridge level. We have people stabbed every day. We also want you to look at that ratio. How many Kenyans are dying in the hands of criminals in a year? So that when you are looking at probabilities, your argument becomes more informed. So that we don't portray our police internationally to be a bad service.
Okay.
Yes, where we are wrong, condemn us.
Okay.
And where we are wrong, ensure that we take responsibility.
All right.
But we also have a responsibility not to portray our police internationally badly. We are doing a very good job.
All right, I have to take a quick break now. I see the other panelists want to jump in, including Renee as well. Let's take that quick break, then we come back. So Wino is here to handle the heat. He says he's ready for it. See you in just a bit.